Driving to work, the world suddenly spun into chaos. One moment I was listening to a podcast, the next I was surrounded by the screeching of metal and the shattering of glass. My car was hit. Pain surged through my body like wildfire, and then darkness enveloped me. I woke up in a hospital bed, my body a map of agony. The doctors told me I was lucky to be alive. My legs and arms were fractured in multiple places, and recovery would be long. But I felt an unease that went beyond my physical injuries, a sense of dread that I couldn't shake off. As days passed, the pain in my bones grew exponentially, surpassing what I thought was humanly bearable. It wasn't just pain, it was as if something alive writhed within me, clawing to break free. The doctors, perplexed by the speed of my healing, conducted numerous tests, but found nothing amiss. They couldn't see the horror that was brewing under my skin. At night, in the sterile silence of the hospital room, I started hearing whispers. Indistinct at first, like echoes in a cavern, but slowly growing clearer, more insistent. They were not voices I recognized, and they spoke in a language that seemed ancient, forgotten by time. When the day finally came for the casts to be removed, everyone expected to see healed limbs. Instead, we were greeted by the grotesque sight of bones that had twisted and turned into unnatural shapes. My arms and legs were a labyrinth of jagged angles and protrusions, no longer resembling anything human. Panic set in the hospital room, but it was nothing compared to the terror that seized my heart. I was becoming something else, something inhuman. The doctors were baffled, muttering about rare genetic disorders, but I knew this was no mere disease. Something primal and ancient stirred within me, reshaping my very essence. Discharged from the hospital, I shut myself away from the world. My body continued its horrifying transformation in the solitude of my home. I watched in horror as my bones moved under my skin, contorting into forms that defied nature. I was losing myself to this unearthly metamorphosis, becoming a creature of nightmares. And the whispers never stopped. They were my constant companions, promising a destiny that was as terrifying as it was inevitable. Each night, they painted vivid images of eldritch beings in my dreams, creatures that lurked in the shadows of history, waiting for a chance to emerge. I knew I couldn't hide forever. The outside world would eventually breach my sanctuary. But for now, I was alone with my transformation, witnessing the last days of my humanity. As the days turned into weeks, my existence became a grotesque parody of life. My once familiar apartment now felt like a crypt, housing a being that was neither man nor monster. The mirror, once an object of routine, became a window into a nightmare. My reflection revealed a distorted figure, my skin barely containing the aberrant growths beneath. My senses had sharpened unnaturally. Sounds that would normally go unnoticed, the distant bark of a dog, the rustle of leaves outside my window, now rang in my ears with crystal clarity. This heightened perception, however, was not a blessing but a curse. It heightened my awareness of the entity that was slowly eroding my humanity. As my transformation progressed, my bones began to move with a mind of their own. It was as if they were testing their newfound autonomy, twisting and coiling under my flesh. The pain was excruciating, a constant reminder of the unnatural process that consumed me. Isolation became my only solace. I shunned contact with the outside world, terrified of what others would see. I could not bear the thought of their horror, their revulsion. I was a freak, a walking nightmare that belonged in the dark corners of the earth, not among the living. In my solitude, my mind began to fray. The whispers grew more insistent, more commanding. They spoke of ancient rites and forgotten realms, of a lineage that stretched back to the dawn of time. These were not mere hallucinations, they were echoes of a primordial truth that was manifesting through me. The nightmares that haunted my sleep were vivid and terrifying. I saw realms where the laws of nature were but whimsical suggestions, inhabited by beings of unspeakable horror. These dreams, I feared, were not mere products of my imagination, but glimpses of a reality that was calling to me, beckoning me to join it. One night, as I lay in bed, racked with pain and fear, I reached a chilling realization. The transformation was not a curse inflicted upon me, it was a herald of my true heritage. I was not becoming a monster, I was returning to a form that had lain dormant within my bloodline for eons. This revelation did not bring comfort. Instead, it filled me with an existential terror. I was a stranger to myself, a puppet whose strings were being pulled by ancient, unfathomable forces. My humanity, the very essence of who I was being eroded, replaced by something alien and terrifying. As I lay there, the bones in my arms and legs twisting into new, horrifying configurations, I knew that I could not hide forever. Sooner or later, the world would come knocking, and I would be forced to confront the reality of what I had become. But until then, I was a prisoner in my own body, watching in horror as the last vestiges of my humanity slipped away. The climax of my transformation was as inevitable as it was horrifying. It arrived on an ordinary night, under the same moon that had witnessed countless human dramas unfold. But there was nothing human about what transpired within the confines of my darkened room. I remember staring at my hands, or what used to be my hands. The bones had elongated, piercing through the skin to form a kind of grotesque exoskeleton. The pain was beyond description, a relentless inferno consuming my flesh and soul. But it was the realization of what I was becoming that truly terrified me. In a moment of excruciating clarity, the truth unveiled itself to me. The accident had been a catalyst, awakening a dormant ancient genetic code within me. It was a lineage so old and forgotten, it predated human memory. My ancestors were not of this earth, but rather from a realm of darkness and terror, a world that defied the laws of nature. As my humanity faded, replaced by this unearthly legacy, my mind teetered on the brink of madness. I could feel my consciousness being swallowed by the entity that was emerging. It was a battle for my soul, a fight to preserve the last shreds of my human identity. The whispers in my head were no longer just voices, they were the echoes of my true ancestors, guiding me towards my inevitable destiny. I understood then that my transformation was not a curse, but a return to my true form. The night reached its zenith, and with it came the final surrender of my human form. My body contorted and twisted, reshaping itself into something monstrous. It was as if I was being torn apart and reborn, each cell screaming in both agony and ecstasy. In the throes of this transformation, I caught glimpses of the ancient world from which my lineage hailed. It was a place of unimaginable horror, where the rules of existence were dictated by beings far older and more terrifying than anything known to man. As I succumbed to the transformation, the last remnants of Ezra, the software engineer from a small, nondescript town, faded into obscurity. In his place rose a creature of the old world, a being whose existence was a testament to the ancient horrors that lurk in the forgotten corners of the universe. The climax of my story was not marked by triumph or resolution, but by the loss of everything I had ever known and been. I was no longer a creature of this world, but an emissary of a realm beyond human comprehension. The last thing I remember before losing myself entirely was a feeling of crossing an unseen threshold, a point of no return from which there would be no coming back. In the aftermath of my complete transformation, I found myself driven by instincts and urges alien to my former human self. My new form was a ghastly fusion of man and something otherworldly, with elongated limbs and a jagged exoskeleton protruding from my skin. I was a creature of the night, a silent predator in a world that was no longer mine. Reluctantly, I abandoned the confines of my apartment, driven by a primal need to escape the encroaching walls that seemed to suffocate my new form. The once familiar streets of my town now felt alien and threatening. The lights were too bright, the sounds too cacophonous. I skulked in the shadows, evading human contact, an outcast on the fringes of society. One night, drawn by a hunger I didn't fully understand, I found myself on the outskirts of town. The forest there was dense and dark, a remnant of a wilder world. It was here that I encountered them, a group of locals, teenagers on a dare, exploring the legend of a mysterious creature said to haunt these woods. Their screams when they saw me were like daggers to my heart. I had become the monster in their stories, the thing that parents warned their children about. In their eyes, I saw the reflection of my lost humanity, a poignant reminder of what I had once been. In a panic, they scattered, and I gave chase without thought, driven by the predatory instincts that now governed my existence. It was only when one of them fell, and I loomed over the terrified boy, that a flicker of my old self emerged. I recoiled in horror, realizing what I was about to do. In that moment of clarity, I fled deeper into the forest, leaving behind the echoes of their fear. I had become a creature of nightmare, a living myth, but I still clung to a vestige of my former self, a reminder of the man I once was. From that night on, I avoided human contact, retreating into the solitude of the wilderness. The forest became my refuge, a place where I could exist away from the judging eyes of the world. But even there, I was not at peace. The whispers of my ancestors still echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the ancient lineage that coursed through my veins. I was a creature caught between worlds, belonging to neither. The human world was lost to me, a distant memory of a life that was no longer mine. But the world of my ancestors, the dark realm of ancient horrors, was a place I feared to embrace fully. So I existed in the shadows, a ghostly presence on the edge of reality, a whispered legend that continued to grow in the town I once called home. The creature in the woods, they called me, a tale to frighten and intrigue. But behind the myth, behind the monster, the remnants of Ezra lingered, a soul trapped in an unworldly form, forever mourning the life he had lost. The final chapter of my story is not one of redemption or return, but of acceptance and resignation. My transformation was complete and irreversible. Ezra, the man I once was, had become little more than a distant echo, a whisper of humanity in the abyss of my new existence. I roamed the outskirts of the forest, a spectral figure lingering in the twilight between the natural world and something far more ancient and sinister. My encounters with humans became rare, fleeting, and always shrouded in fear and misunderstanding. I was a creature of folklore now, a mysterious apparition that fueled local legends and ghost stories. In my solitude, I often reflected on my past life, on the mundane yet precious moments that define human existence. Memories of laughter, love, and simple joys haunted me, a cruel contrast to the dark primal life I now led. The whispers of my ancient lineage still filled my mind, but they no longer held the same power over me. I had accepted my fate, but I refused to let go of the last vestiges of my humanity. As the seasons changed and years passed, sightings of the creature in the woods became less frequent. I became more adept at hiding, more in tune with the rhythms of the natural world. My existence faded into the realm of myths and urban legends, a story passed down through generations, growing more embellished with time. But the truth remained hidden, no me to me. The creature they spoke of was once a man who lived a simple life until fate intervened, unleashing a transformation that bridged the gap between the known and the unknown, the natural and the supernatural. I often wondered if there were others like me, lost souls who had undergone a similar metamorphosis. But in my isolation, such questions remained unanswered, mere speculations in a life that had become defined by its otherness. The world of humans continued to evolve and change, oblivious to the true nature of the creature that lurked at its fringes. And I, the last remnant of Ezra, continued to exist in a state of perpetual exile, a guardian of a threshold that few would ever know or understand. My story ends not with closure, but with a lingering question, a haunting uncertainty that mirrors the mysteries of existence itself. For in the depths of the forest, where shadows dance and the line between legend and reality blurs, the creature that was once a man watches and waits, a silent testament to the unknown forces that shape our world and our destinies. And so, the legend of the creature in the woods lives on, a chilling reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, and some transformations are not meant to be undone.